Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF Everything in That Shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And it's been
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
We did it. No mistakes. This one, I feel like we are recording out of order, but it won't matter to the people listening.
Yes.
We are kind of like we did Fantastic Four. Yes, that would have aired already. We're kind of mushing together a couple of movies for this, and it's just in general Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles today.
Yes. Without bringing up the Michael Bay one, because
I mean, I'm sure we're gonna bring it up, but like
we're gonna bring it up.
We didn't watch it we didn't watch. I feel bad because there were directors for those movies, and it wasn't Michael Bay.
Right.
But I mean, maybe those directors don't want the credit for it. I don't know. But yeah, we didn't watch those two movies in preparation. We did not watch, or I did not watch, Secret of the Ooze or the Time Traveling Turtles movie.
Yeah, so the point here was to, I think, only look at and compare the original 1991 and then the
2007
TMNT continuation 2007-ish one. So that was the point, and whether or not it was a successful continuation, and what the good talking points of each were.
In my head it was like those are two that people don't really shit on.
Yeah.
Everything else gets, like, don't get me wrong, I love Secret of the Ooze. I know it's not a better movie. They don't even use their weapons in it.
Yep.
It was very, like, it was declawed, for lack of a better term.
Correct. It was a family friendly.
It was made to be way more family friendly. And we'll get into how family friendly these things are in general anyway, but like, right. I like that one. I just know that it's not like a glowing example of a good attempt at doing a Ninja Turtles movie.
Yes.
Same with the time travel one, same with the Michael Bay produced ones from 2014 and on.
Right. It's like the same reason why we purposely avoid doing Batman Forever.
Yeah, even though I love that movie.
It's because we want to be generally more positive in our talking points.
Or even just take something that has more of a general positive sentiment and see if it holds up.
Yeah, that
because it's one thing to be like, yeah, people didn't like it, and then that's that conversation. But we just wanted to see like these movies that like actually people like and see how well they hold up. And
correct.
The gap is closing, but you get the point.
Yeah, and this one is interesting because it really does challenge the notion of time in regards to this, like how you want to view the TMNT one. In regards to whether or not it was in the chronological aspect of it all, or
I mean, we could get into that. I don't know if you want to talk about that now. Just I kind of wanted to do the 90s one and then the other one, kind of like how we did Fantastic Four, like talk about them separately and then let's compare.
Do that.
All right. Well, the 90s one, I still love it. This time, I don't know. I guess it's because this is the lens we're looking at all these movies now. It definitely came off as way more childish than I remember it, but like not in a bad way, not in like a, oh my God, what are they doing? It was just like, I guess it wasn't that serious. Like I always, as a kid, remembered it being like, this is the most serious thing I've ever seen. Like everyone's always sad. Like Raphael almost dies. Like Splinter almost dies. Like they really get fucked up by Shredder. Like I just remember it being such a serious movie, and it is in comparison to basically everything else we're going to talk about in terms of Ninja Turtles, but it is not like this big dramatic dark movie that I remember it to be.
Yeah. It was a movie that at the time when I was a kid, I felt those emotions because it was in a way so overacted because it was animatronics.
Mhm.
And it really, really connected because I guess at the time when you're that young, you just feel emotions so much more rawly and don't understand context. So it's like, oh, you identify so much more. But now it's just like, wait, what? Um, that seems overly dramatic or whatever it is, which is, beside the point. Because we still have to, I still have to remind myself, right, it's a kid's movie. It's a kid's movie. The same way we have to look at Star Wars.
Yeah, it's such a kid's movie to the point that, like, I think the only thing they say that's bad is damn.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they ever say hell. And obviously, I'm not expecting them to say shit or fuck,
Right.
but, like, the way damn is used feels like that was their one concession about, like, that's as edgy as it can get.
Correct. It feels like the general nature of everything in this movie still has to be very lighthearted. Like the idea of like, oh, I had a crappy day can't really exist in this world or something like this. You know what I mean?
I think the angst is there. I think it's just,
yes.
I just think it's, they mix in a lot more funny stuff than I thought they did. It's like at the end of the day, like the movie still ends with, if you had no context for the other movies, you thinking that they crushed Shredder's head.
Yeah.
Like, like, I would say the stuff they do with Raphael isn't very kid movie like, because like you would never in a kid's movie be like, oh no, this person's like out for the count. You thought he's not just gonna bounce back from being beat up like that. Like he's out.
Yeah.
And like for an extended period of time. It's not like, oh, the next scene he's better. It's like, no, like they have to do a lot of the movie without Raphael now. So I would say it isn't like completely kid friendly in that. And I don't even mean like, oh, I wouldn't show my kid that. I'm saying that like, I don't know that that's probably why it stuck with me so much, is that I'm like, wow, they're really sticking with this whole thing that Raphael might die. Like it's not just hand waved away. Like he takes the time to get better.
Yeah, they really. It's funny because there's so much lighthearted nature dispersed throughout the movie, and then the real moments, like what you were talking about, the healing part where he's just in the bathtub and Leo's just watching him and all that kind of stuff. Like Mikey and Dawn are just having such a good time that as a kid, I think you're just more drawn towards that. And now
I wasn't, but yeah, I can see kids being like, yeah, whatever. But like, I like the narration saying like, it's not that they're having a good time. It's that each turtle found their own way to like deal with this and process it.
Right.
So it's like, okay, Donatello's gonna like bump heads with Casey Jones. That's the way he can kind of like blow off steam. Michelangelo obviously has already been shown like he's just going to keep doing his stand-up routine and more jokes. And then Leonardo, like, again, true to his nature, isn't going to like try and mask how he feels and is just vigilantly watching over Raphael.
Right.
And I appreciate that. Again, that's why I'm saying like it's not like I think like, oh, they only made this for 6-year-olds. It's more that like there is more of that stuff in there than I remember, but it is still like, it still does maintain that element of like, but serious stuff is happening here. Like,
yes.
And yeah, because we're kids, especially when that movie comes out, we're not like, oh, I get it. That's how Michelangelo hides his pain, or that's how even though the movie says it, the actions are more like, yeah, as a kid, you can just be like, oh, that was fun. Yeah. They're just having a good time.
Yeah.
But it is like, no, they're processing something and this is how they're choosing to like manifest that pain.
Correct. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting thing, because there's a lot of like connection to that like childish nature and that overly dramatic aspect of it all, where even when the idea of like Splinter being captured, the reaction is to kind of be like, well, what can we do about it? And they're kind of like lost without him, and they're trying to find a way, right? And they're really like, we know he's alive, but we just don't even know how to look for him, kind of deal. It's just like that's something like a kid would identify, like, well, my parents were gone, like I wouldn't know how to look for them, like I would feel lost, like at a mall or something like that, right? But then you have those moments where he's like, no, being tortured and starved for multiple days, and like you know, all these kind of things, and you're just there's so much that you're pulled in so many directions too, that it's an equal amount of pulling, I think. You know what I mean?
You
It's
saying
never
like
like,
it's pretty even, the tone of the like.
yeah,
When I say that, I mean like we are acknowledging there's different tones to the movie, but it doesn't feel
right.
unbalanced. Is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel overly pushy in one department.
Right.
And that's what I really liked about it, and that's why I guess I didn't notice the more adult themes as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Well, I mean, not that anyone will be listening to. I don't know, but like, yeah, the general idea of this first movie is they. I feel like this is like when they save April from being mugged. That's like the first time that like the city has added any hint that there'll like exist. Not that anyone can confirm. Oh, turtles, but
Right.
because Raphael leaves his side, it's kind of
Yeah.
like what the fuck is going on here, and that goes against what Splinter has been trying to do, which is like, no, we just stay in the shadows. So like that's
Yeah.
not a good thing that you make, and that leads to right away the conflict, which is Raphael being like, this is stupid, like we should be able to go out and do what we want, and the rest of the team, and like, yeah, to the rest of the team and things. So then he goes off, does his own thing, gets beat up, in addition to Splinter gets kidnapped first, and so now they're down 2 people from their family, and like the movie is pretty much like, how do they come back from that loss? And they do, all the while Shredder for some reason is picking like kids off the street to make the Foot Clan.
Yeah, and that's
with Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, and that I remember seeing like, wait, Sam Rockwell's in this? What the hell?
Yeah.
It was just really like the kids thing to me didn't make sense even as an adult now, because it's not like, oh, they didn't show a kid being caught by the police and be like, well, he's too young, we have to let him go kind of deal. It wasn't like that was the reason why. It was just like, oh, we're using kids and then growing them up into foot soldiers and teaching them karate while they get to chill and hang out. Now, that was the one thing that didn't really make sense to me, was if they're like, if kids are able to like rebel and leave their homes and find a place where they can skate and play video games and like hang out for free, then like why would they be interested in training for karate or something like that? Like it made no sense to me.
Well, it's not just any kid, right? Because the movie, that's the point of having that Danny character, because like, yes, he wants a place to do all those things we just mentioned, but he's also not that interested in like
correct
illegal activities. So I think, yes, in general, it's a jump, but again, I don't know if it's that big of a jump. I think what you're like, because why would any kid ever join any gang then, by your logic?
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is they do join gangs. So what you're seeing is them joining this specific gang. And they even show you that it's not like, oh, he can get any kid he wants. There are kids that are, like, as you said, prone to being like, I want to get away from home, I want to do all those cool things, but then when he gets there, he's like, not what I signed up for, I'm out.
Yeah, I guess it was one of those things where I'm like, because we're exploring it from that perspective, I guess we don't really know, but if he actually joined and became a foot soldier and then pulled back, it would be like, oh, that'd be a little bit more interesting. But I guess the film's in an hour and a half can't really explore.
Yeah, and the worst thing already happens. He joins, and since they like can track him, like that's what leads to like Splinter being things. So like, I feel like he sees enough of being like, oh, I don't want to be a part of this.
Oh yeah, the moment I think the moment he sees Splinter is like, oh shit, this is real, and then he just pulls back. Well, he actually pulls back like before that,
before, but I think I guess that's why I was pushing back against your point, because I feel like that character is what you're talking about, is the idea of like, why would I join any of this?
Correct.
It's
and
like
I think he do that very well.
Because I do think that he's a character I never liked as a kid, but I'm like, I do feel like he does serve that purpose of what you're talking about, which is like, this isn't like every kid is down for something like this.
Correct.
Anyone who's down for it is clearly like looking for something deeper than just a place to hang out and play video games.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did say like, "Oh, this is your family," and they refuted the family thing at the end. And all that stuff. And that was pretty interesting and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the whole movie over, like, it is very, very balanced, and I do love that.
I do like it. I think the one thing that I was thinking about before we recorded was, I feel like the one knock, and I think this is just because of the cartoons, because like when you look at the history of the comic books, it's not like the turtles had that much of a distinction.
No, they didn't.
Like, I mean, they all wore red. Like you couldn't tell other than them saying, "Hey Donatello, hey Raphael." Like you don't know.
Mhm.
In a comic, yes, it's easy to be like this when they talk, you know who's who, but like they don't have the defined characteristics like we know from the cartoon about like this one's the leader, this one's the rude one. This way it was so like, but this movie, what I liked was at least for Leonardo and Raphael, you get two very distinct characters.
Correct.
And then like looking back on this, I'm like, but like if I hadn't seen the like cartoons before the movie, I'd be like Michelangelo and Donatello are the same thing to me. Like,
yes,
they both make jokes. They're like a comedy duo in this, and there's
correct.
no. And then like I feel like when you get the Secret of the Ooze, they start pushing Donatello as like the smart one.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, when Corey Haim isn't doing his voice,
right?
Or sorry, Corey Feldman. I got the wrong Corey there. But like,
right.
But it's like, oh, I guess yeah, maybe that was the push to make it more like the cartoon on the second one. But I was just like, it's hard because like I always think of the turtles of having four distinct characteristics, and I'm like, if I were to just watch this movie, I'd be like, I guess it's Raphael and Leonardo.
Yeah, and to that point, even I would even go further to be like whether or not Leo has a big enough like solo personality to be considered.
I think he's the teacher's pet, which is as a kid, that's enough. That's enough to be like, okay, that's his thing. So yeah, he can joke around with the other brothers, but like he's also like, no, Splinter said to do this, and like, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, that for sure. It was just one of those things where I just realized how much more similar they. To your point, like they had very very similar personalities, but they really made Raphael to be the solo one.
Oh yeah, he like dresses up to go out, like he has his own life basically.
Right. And you know that's one of the things I noticed too about this is Donatello and Michelangelo were like basically a Scully and Hitchcock kind of duo from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It was just like they're written as the same character, and I'm like, was it really that way as a kid? Like, is that why it was always like when you're like as a kid playing Ninja Turtles in the backyard or whatever? Because like I would have been 4 when this was released.
Yeah.
Like you're still around that make-believe time. Like I would always be like Leonardo, and like there would always be Raphael because like there'd be no difference between Donatello and Michelangelo. You'd be like, what the hell?
I mean, for my group of friends, we focus more on the cartoon where there is a difference.
Correct.
So like,
but from this, you would never get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very much agreeing with you in this, and I'm very disappointed to see that.
Yeah, like they don't really push, and I feel like yes, it's like Michelangelo's the surf dude, but like so is Donatello. Like it's not. I just feel like there isn't that much of a difference between the two of them.
Correct.
And it's I only find that weird because like Donatello was the like celebrity get in terms of the turtles because that's Corey Feldman. Like that's the guy. Like it's like, well, you gave him the turtle that is like nothing. But whatever. Maybe that was on purpose too. Maybe they were like, there's nothing really that's gonna distinguish Donatello from anything. So let's give him the most famous voice actor, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is kind of fun to me to be like, what's going on there? But maybe he just, I don't know. You know, to be honest, I didn't know anything about the voice cast going into this whatsoever.
I know Josh Pace or Pice is Raphael. He's like the person I feel like keeps working. Like he was just in Joker last year, and like you'll see him all the time. He's got such a distinct voice that you're like, yeah, I know that voice. Like I've seen him before. But I can't remember, and I'm not gonna look it up now. Sorry, but like I know every turtle, like the person in the suit is in the movie.
Yeah.
So like the pizza delivery guy is either Donatello or Michelangelo. Like Leonardo shows up at some point, but like Josh Pace is the voice of Raphael, and he's the guy in the cab when like Raphael rolls over the cab. But people are like, he's also in the suit, and I'm like, he could be, but also that would mean he's a martial artist, and he has literally never done any martial arts in any other movie he's done, and he's had quite a long career.
Right, and yeah, that's kind of like one of those things where it's kind of silly.
I'm sure I just always get mixed up, and I know I should have looked it up, but it just came to my head right now, and I'm not gonna waste time looking into it. I just feel like he's the voice and he's in the movie, whereas obviously Corey Feldman isn't in the movie; he's just doing a voice.
Right. So here, where I have it looked up already, just to help you clarify, I do have Josh Pais as Raphael in Suit Performer credited, and then Ken Trum as Raphael in Suit Martial Arts Stunt Double. So
interesting. So I guess that shows they really cared about Raphael.
Yeah. I think
so.
It's
like he's got someone to like act for him, then someone to do the martial arts, and then some. I mean, I guess they doubled down on the voice and the acting, but like,
and
I guess to the point you were getting at, Raphael is the most fleshed out.
Correct. He's the most explored of the turtles, I feel. I didn't care to pay attention to the screen time, but I would guess that he would get the most screen time.
I mean, because there's all that time where he's out. So I don't know if he gets the most screen time. I think to what your point earlier, everything is so even.
Yeah.
But I do think that obviously he pulls focus because like that time that he's not on screen is all about them dealing with the fact that he is out of commission.
Correct. Yeah. And it's fun because like so we do have a Josh Pais, which is weird to me because now this leads into the animatronics discussion of like they must have put him in the suit to get a physical performance out of him, but then it's still animatronics, right? It's just like so.
Just the face.
Yeah,
the face is the animatronics.
But is he a very physical actor with his body, Pais guy? Like because I know I've heard his voice before. I know him primarily from voice acting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about that. I just know that obviously what they probably were thinking more of is like if he's on set doing the voice and talk and moving, it's easier than like trying to match his voice to what the person did on the set.
That's fair. For voiceover, okay. That can make sense.
Yeah, it's weird. I look him up and they're like, what you know him from? Joker. I'm like, I guess so. He's got one scene in Joker.
Yeah.
I know him from Ninja Turtles. He's in Ray Donovan.
Yeah.
Motherless Brooklyn. Yeah, I don't know if he's like necessarily. I think they were just like, this is the voice. And then they brought him on set to do the suit, which apparently was the worst. Everyone hated being in those suits.
Yeah,
they were like 70 pounds.
Oh, yeah. It looks like it would be very, very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely seeing this in HD, and seeing the seams of the helmet or the masks and all that kind of stuff was definitely took some of the magic away.
I genuinely did not have that issue with this. I was just like, I still like the look of it. Like that 90s Turtles, like I love that look. I still think it looks cool to this day.
For sure. And I'm so glad that Henson consulted on it. It was like,
well, it's his, but he was not happy about it. He was like, I don't like the violence. And I'm like, it's weird. Like,
yeah,
I'm glad he did it, as you said, but it's like, but they're called the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
It seems like a weird, like, pain point after the fact.
He's like, well, I signed on to do it, but I really didn't like the violence. Like,
it's like, I mean, same with the woman, I think her name's Judith Hogue, the woman who played April.
Yeah.
She didn't come back because she was like, I do not approve of like the violence. I'm like, you were an amazing April. I hate that you left. Like, that's one thing I really like about this movie and always holds up is like, she's in danger, but she's never a damsel in distress. Like when she's getting mugged, she's like making jokes and like tries to fight back and like
really downplays it all and it's like, no, I wasn't mugged last night. Like he's like, well, you were involved here. It's like, yeah, well, I got away. And she's like that kind of person, right? It's just like, whoa.
And I'm not saying they change her for the second and third, but they probably do. But like, I just felt like that actress Judith Hogue was so good as April in terms of like never feeling like the woman in the like. And I don't mean that like women are inherently less than. I mean that in Hollywood, usually if you're a woman in a comic book movie,
Yeah,
you're not gonna get great. You're not gonna get laugh lines like she gets. You're not really gonna like be like she's the one that's like, all right, Casey Jones, shut up and kiss me. I have work to do. Like I'm not here for you to like fumble over yourself and like be charming that way. Like I want something out of this. Like yeah, kiss me and now I'm going to work. Bye.
Yeah. It's she's a very very character. She's a character that I did like the writing for, and it holds up, and that's why I always liked her character. So the performance and everything is consistent and holds up, and I do enjoy that about her. Which is so weird that like we don't like the violence. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that does taint it for me. That I'm like, oh, you didn't like you did like it seems like you're so in for this movie, and then to find out that you're like, I'm not in. I do not approve of this. I'm like,
yeah.
You must be an amazing actor then. Like, like just imagine what would have happened if you actually liked what you were doing.
One of my questions is I'm looking at her now, her acting career now, and I'm questioning some of the choices because it's inconsistent. She's in Out of the Shadows as well as a cameo.
Yeah.
She's in Nightmare on Elm Street. She does like DC Noir. As like she's obviously in roles that around like create some sort of violence, or there's like action in general, right? So it's either she got used to it real quick or like I don't know.
I think everyone was aware of like what Ninja Turtles Mania was, which is it's a bunch of toys for kids. So maybe she's like, well, if this is focused at kids, this is a bit violent for kids, I think. And as I said earlier, like there's some pretty dark stuff happens in it. So maybe she was just like, I don't like this for kids. Whereas the other stuff you're mentioning is less, hey, this is for 4-year-olds and more
that's fair.
Teenage stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think she's like, I don't agree with violence. I think she might have just been like,
in context,
I probably took this.
That's fair. That's very fair. I will say, like looking at the filmography though, she had like a big 1990s, like year in 19, like she was in
as she should, because that is a great role in a movie that like she could have phoned that in.
Yeah, and she got nothing for like 7 years. So I'm like, she must have really hated that role or something like that too. Did she hate the role in general or just the violence?
I mean, who knows? Like, I feel like it's hard because we didn't talk to her about it, but I'm sure at the time she was probably like, I don't really feel like this should have been aimed at kids. Maybe that was more her issue.
Sure. That's fair.
But yeah, she didn't come back because of that. Because I remember thinking like, oh, the other April they got looks nicer, but I'm like, after rewatching, I'm just like, not this time, but just rewatching in general, being like, no, the first April is the best April. Like she feels like a real character.
Correct.
She's not just there to be like, guys, why don't you stay at my house?
Yeah. True. And it's and I really like that the TMNT stays true to that in many regards. Like she's got her own thing going on, not really like waiting around for stuff to happen. So always respected her character, and it was really really nice to see that the character holds up.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, I don't even really know what. I guess in the newer animated stuff, like from 2014 and they were kind of like, oh, they're her turtles. That's what she's there for. And I'm like, I don't like that. Yeah. I like that she's just someone who meets them and is like, all right, yeah, cool.
Yep.
But yeah, that's anything else to this main one. Yeah, I think it held up is more my point. Other than the whole like, and yeah, I'll even give you that really Raphael's the only like truly fleshed out character, but I still feel like in contrast, they still give you Leonardo, who stands out from Donatello and Michelangelo.
Correct. Yeah, it's funny to watch this film in hindsight because it's one of those things too where it's like this film is as evenly about other characters as it is about the turtles too. Yeah,
like because it is about, we haven't really talked about it, but like it is like the whole thing is like Splinter ran away from Shredder.
Yeah.
And now he's like, fuck, like Shredder's here too again. Like, I guess we got to stop this because this is no good.
Mhm.
And you do get the backstory for them. Well, I was listening to something where someone made a good point of like, he like gets to the States and then like is just like a construction worker. I mean, I know it's not Splinter or whatever, but like it is just kind of like, what just happened here? Like, what was that jump? But like, anyway, the point is, I do feel like there is in this movie enough room to like learn about different characters. Because yes, you've got Danny, you've got his dad, which is linked in with April, but like April's got her own thing going on, and she links in well with the Turtles. And then you've got the Splinter Shredder thing going on. So yeah, like it's pretty, and I don't ever feel like for a Ninja Turtles movie that I'm like, oh, this person should have got more time. Like it feels like everything is done in a way that leads to the logical conclusion. And sorry, I forgot Casey Jones. Which
Casey Jones is one of those characters now where I'm like, I don't like you anymore.
I never liked Casey Jones, but I get it. Like the idea is that like that's someone for Raphael to connect with outside of the only family he's known. And also in general, I think in the comics it's more like for Raphael to be like, all right, I want to do more than what my family's doing, but I'm not going to do what this guy's doing. This guy takes it too far.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because I'm like, I forget all the time that it's not just hockey stuff that he has. Because I thought his thing was purely hockey.
Oh, because of the mask. But it's more like the
I'm like, it's
croquet baseball bat.
Stuff. Yeah, like when he got the cricket thing out, I'm like, that was cool. I'm like, the golf club swing was really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, really fun to me. It's like, oh yeah, he only knows how to use it as a weapon if it's a sports thing, which is so funny to me. And yeah, it was I like that aspect of the character, but the homophobia, not so much.
Especially what is like when he's like, "Oh, you're claustrophobic," and then he's like, "I never even touched the guy." I'm like, "That's." I get the jump they're making, and obviously, like, what am I going to do? Get mad at that actor? Like, it's what was written, but it's like, but that still wouldn't make sense. Like, he ended in. It would be one thing if he was like, "Oh, I sense a bit of or claustrophobia." Then like maybe you could be like, oh, he thinks he's calling him gay. But like I feel like when you end with ick, that is always like, oh, you're afraid of something.
Yeah. Like the joke definitely doesn't track, but it's one of those things where I'm like, is this a joke that landed because we were kids and like we didn't get to think
I don't remember. Like you said it, but like as a kid, anything to do with like sexuality, it completely went over my head. I never registered any of that.
This definitely didn't register. But like rewatching it definitely registered, and now like when it registers,
it has to. But like, I feel like that's because of who we are that it would register. Of like, why make this joke?
Yeah,
especially since you're supposed to like Casey Jones.
Yeah, and like the joke doesn't make sense either.
And he never gets checked for it.
Yep.
The joke is supposed to be he's a real man and he's an idiot.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like they get why he's an idiot.
Yeah.
He's not an idiot because he doesn't understand what claustrophobic is. He's an idiot because he thinks that it would be a bad thing if he was gay.
Yeah. Yep. It's ignorant that he doesn't know what claustrophobia means. But it's shitty that he's like, oh, if anything to do with being gay is bad. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it is.
That's not good.
That is weird. I forgot about that, but I don't.
Yeah.
I guess it's because I just never liked Casey Jones. I'm always just like, I don't need him, but I understand the service that he provides in terms of narratively.
Correct. The thing I liked about Casey Jones was the aesthetic of him, and I think the aesthetic of him gets cooler as like things get developed. So I really like that aspect of him. But as a character, not so much.
Yeah.
And that's just because I really like hockey masks, I guess. They're just really cool.
It's a cool look. I mean, I like basically. I do like some of the humor he provides as he's trying to like court April.
Yeah.
But but mostly I like it because it shows that she has got her own thing going on. She's not susceptible to that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like she's just like, you're an idiot. I'm gonna go fix stuff. Like, bye.
Yeah.
And then yes, he does have that moment where he like sits her down and massages her, but I feel like again, unfortunately, that's a thing of the time. Like, because I feel like Batman '89 has a moment like that too, where he tells Vicky Vale to shut up and sit down.
Yeah,
like, I guess that's just a beat in movies where a man has to assert himself.
Yeah, like is this casual misogyny a thing? Like that was one thing that Stacy was like, "Whoa, there's no consent there. That was not okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, that was really not okay." But it's just like you gotta remember that lens of like 1990.
I mean, it's still wrong, but I feel like what the movie has going for it is that up until that point, I believe that he would have never been able to do that unless, and I'm not saying like, oh, she's just saying no the whole time, but she really wanted. I feel like in that moment, she was like, okay, fine. I do believe that April is built up as a character that like, that wouldn't have happened. It would never have got that far if in that moment she wasn't like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
I think that like the movie, and that's why I always hone in on how much I like that character, is that she's well rounded enough for me to be like, no, if she really didn't want that to happen, she wouldn't have sat there and like she would have got up and left.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do, and yes, maybe that's me giving the movie more credit, but it does. I just feel like that is her character. She is not being told what to do at any time. Everything she does is what she wants to do.
Yeah. To clarify, I always feel like she's definitely in control of the situation. Like that's the thing. She's like, oh, this is happening. I'm gonna let it happen. Like I always feel like that's the case with her. Except for the moments of genuine danger where you're like, oh, is she gonna get out of this? And you're like, oh, okay, she's getting out of this. Fine, cool, we're good. We're gonna deal, right? But in that situation, you're like, no, she's in control. Like Casey's not really a threat or something like that. He's just
and I'm that's not to excuse what he did. That's just me saying like I do believe that like as a character. Which is weird for the time that the movie was made, that I have enough information to believe that like this isn't her finally submitting to him. It's her being like, I am fine with this right now. Like this is, maybe I do need a massage. Fine, let's do this.
Yeah, but very problematic is the stamp we're putting on his behavior.
Yes.
That's what we're doing overall.
Yeah, for sure. I do like, so what I've heard, because I don't really like the comic. I've tried to read the comic books and I'm just like, I need the separate colors. I do really need that.
The separate colors was really like, and
the comics I feel like are usually very like, one of them is gone. And I'm like, I like them as a team. Like, I don't know what the like need to like separate them is. Like in the comics is usually like, oh, Donatello died, or like, Michelangelo's been brainwashed, he's gone. And I'm like, oh, all right. But like what they did keep was how long it actually takes to beat Shredder. It's not like they can just be like, all right, we're just working together and it's gonna work out. It's like, no, this guy can fuck them up.
Yeah.
And like it takes a lot. Like it takes everyone that we've built up throughout this movie. It takes Splinter coming in, it takes the Four Turtles, it takes April doing her stuff, it takes Casey Jones on the ground. Like everyone needs to like pitch in to beat Shredder. And I do think that is pretty cool that like it really does come down to like, no, our villain is just that good. Like he is that much of a force that like we don't need him to be like, and now I'm gonna trigger a bomb and you like, what are you gonna do about it? It's like, no, we just need to stop this guy because he will fuck you up.
Yep. Yeah, it's he's seen as a genuine threat, and his aesthetic is crazy in this. Like I just forget how big that helmet is. But aside from that, it's like genuinely scary in it.
As a kid, I was kind of like, holy shit. Like now I'm just like, oh yeah, this looks cool. And also you have the benefit of being like, don't worry, they'll beat him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Until the second one, you're like, Super Shredder, holy shit.
Yeah, but as a kid, you're like, this is genuinely good. And Super Shredder is genuinely one of the coolest things. I love Super Shredder.
That was a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know who came up with it, but I was like, yeah, good. This is good.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it is interesting to me that the voice of Elmo is Splinter.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
That's
What
that's
was his
genuine.
name? Kevin Clash. Oh, I mean, some problematic stuff in his past. I don't know where people have landed on that, or he has gone to court, so I don't know.
Right.
But as a kid, I was happy to be like, oh, a black guy's doing the voice of Splinter. Cool. But I don't think he's someone that you're supposed to be happy about these days.
Yeah.
I don't
I did
know.
not know that actually from this side of things, but it's good to know that that's happened.
Kevin Clash. Yeah, I got the name right.
But we will say that we, as a cartoon, voiced by James Avery, and that was cool.
Oh no, that was Shredder, not Splinter.
No, sorry, not Shredder, not Splinter. Sorry, yes, Shredder in the cartoon.
Not that. Like, I think he did it for like maybe 3 episodes. But still,
Oh, really?
Yeah. He wasn't the like main Shredder.
Right.
But yeah, it's still important. James Avery, Uncle Phil, also voiced War Machine in the Spider-Man cartoon.
Gotcha.
He's great. Anyway, that's Ninja Turtles 90. I liked it. It holds up. Casey Jones has 2 strikes against him.
Yep.
I really didn't miss him in the second movie. It wasn't it wasn't until the third movie I was like, oh yeah, I guess he wasn't in that second one.
Yeah. Like what you did there.
Oh, the 2 strikes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good joke.
He's no good in those 2 moments.
Yeah.
Otherwise, good plot. I mean, all he is there is to like contrast and do stuff like that, but he still feels like his own character. He doesn't feel like he's just there to highlight certain things about other characters.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's well done considering the amount of effort that they put into this movie, which was kind of like, who cares? It's just something to sell more toys. And then when they saw, and then I think they saw the script, they're like, this is way too violent. All right, who cares about it then? Like it's whatever.
Yeah, one of the cool things is the interesting fact that this movie was the highest grossing film,
independent film
at the time, and for like 9 years straight. That's cool. I like that because it was like, I remember as a kid, like watching this or rewatching this with my parents or something like that. They're like, "Whoa, this was Golden Harvest made this," and that's like a Chinese like film production company. And they're like, "What the hell?" And we looked into it. It's like, "Oh, interesting. It was distributed by New Line, but it was made by Golden Harvest." Like that was really, really funny to us. That makes sense.
Yeah, I do remember the Golden Harvest thing of them being like, "All right, we're in," and people being like, "This movie's not going to do anything." And then look at them. It did well. It did really well. Okay. TMNT.
Yes. Now flash forward to 2007. First
fully animated
TMNT, and I loved it. I do love this movie.
It's a fun movie. Yeah, I think and it's cool because they don't have to like lean on Shredder again.
Yeah.
It is, to the best of my knowledge, a completely new villain.
Yes.
Which I don't feel like it really worked in that time traveling Ninja Turtles movie. It's just kind of like, oh, it's just some white guy. All right, who cares? This one, it's a white guy, but like you get these cool monsters out of it, and like this. I think that's what's cool about it is that like he's from so far in the past that you're like, oh, well, he's built up this whole thing, and like he ends up switching and trying to save the day. But it is like you just feel like he's such a lived-in character that it doesn't feel like, oh, all right, it's just this guy, this nameless person. It feels way more interesting that way. That they're like, it's a new adventure completely.
Yeah.
I think her name's Karai. Like, is still leading the foot soldiers, but like even they are kind of like everyone's kind of afloat in this movie. Everyone's just kind of like, I don't know, like. The turtles are all split up being like, I guess there's nothing to do. Even the foot soldiers are like, I don't know, like who's going to pay us to do stuff now?
Yeah. And that's funny because I never really saw the Foot Soldiers as like a mercenary gang, but I guess they kind of became that without Shredder, right? But I
Mhm.
mean, like, and that's funny because the Karai character, the Shredder's former second in command, is just like you think there'd be like, wait, why don't we establish a new agenda? But I guess like that tease at the very end was their agenda. Is like,
Yeah,
okay, we need money to bring Shredder back, or like the threat of Shredder or whoever back that they're bringing back.
I
But
think
that's
it was. I'm assuming it was Shredder, but
yeah.
like this is the thing. Like, so in the comics, I believe that character is actually higher up than Shredder, and
Oh yeah.
like so she's part of like the Five or something like that in the Foot Clan, and the idea was like, I guess for this movie they didn't want to play into the other thing, which is I think in some cartoon version she's his daughter,
Hmm.
but the idea is still that she wants to bring him back because like that's kind of the idea is like she's higher up, so she's like, well, get him to do the like dirty work and like
Mhm.
let's bring Shredder back. But it isn't actually that she's this, I mean, I can't remember if this movie says, I think this movie does say she's the second in command, but it was like, no, she's higher up in the actual comics.
Yeah.
She's Shredder's boss,
Mm-hmm.
which I find interesting.
It was very, very interesting.
But yeah, I liked her presence in the movie, like the way she just like, all right, you guys are idiots. Foot Clan out. Like we're not joining in on this anymore.
Right.
Oh, like the turtles are here, they'll figure it out. Bye. We actually don't have beef because we're not being paid to have beef with you right now.
Yeah, and they're just like, we're being paid. That was a funny thing at the end. It was just like, we're being paid to do this, so we're gonna do that. So we're technically your allies right now. So
Mm-hmm.
that's it. And then I liked at the end they were like, hey, just so you know, we're up to something.
Yeah.
We're scheming.
Yeah. But yeah, everyone's afloat in this one, and then they all come together to put 13 monsters back into their cells.
Correct.
Cool. I mean, that is a formula that works. It stands for fun, and I do think that the one scene that still held up to me, because I remember it was spoiled for me before I saw the movie,
Mhm.
that Leonardo and Raphael finally like fight for real,
Yep.
and I was just like, I'm still not that into the heroes fight each other because ultimately, like, it's just wasting time until they actually have to fight the villain.
Yes.
And yes, the Avengers movies have had some fun moments of it, and I did like Civil War because it was well put together, and I do like this fight because it does feel like things are finally coming to a head. Because at first it's like, all right, Leonardo's fighting someone he doesn't know who they are, but he thinks
Yep.
they need to stop. And then so that's what makes it even more interesting when like Raphael reveals himself and he's like, oh no, I still want to fight you. Like I knew who you were the whole time and fuck you. And I'm like, all right. And I feel like the rain effect that is happening, like the animation seems to like just be better in that moment as well.
Yes. So good.
It's
Like
very moody and
that's
like
two of
it
my
really
favorite.
works for me.
It like the rain almost gave their skin texture, which was
Hmm.
what was lacking from a CGI department.
Yeah,
Like,
because I wasn't a big fan of the way they looked in the movie, but that rain sequence like just makes things so much better.
so you know what the whole thing is, and this is one of those. I thought the entire time watching this, I'm just like, I would love a TV series of this kind of animation, but not for a movie. And I think that's where like, and obviously the Michael Bay one that has a bigger budget and CGI technology advanced like a billion times since then.
Hmm.
But like that's where I was like, yeah, this is what's cool about it. Like I like this. Like that return to that like live action plus the turtles was worked really, really well. Where this was like at the time as a movie didn't work so well for me because it's like, okay, we have now the problem of animating humans into a turtle world as well.
Never looks great.
It never looks good.
I mean,
And
it
it
can
does
look good,
good.
but it's hard. It's hard to pull off, I should say.
But and it's also if it does look good, like I'm thinking the one of the movies that makes a genuine attempt to try to be suspend the belief of like, oh, these are real people is like Beowulf, and like that is just so creepy.
Well,
They're
yeah,
doing
that's because that's the motion capture stuff, and
this,
like Robert Zemeckis loving that shit.
yeah,
But yeah, you're right. That's like where the Canny Valley really gets, Uncanny Valley. Sorry, gets really weird.
yeah, it gets
Um,
weird and it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for sure. I don't like it.
But yeah, I think the animation was kind of a turnoff for me.
Yeah.
But and I think, to our point before, this movie tries a bit more to like lean into like these are 4 separate characters.
Yes.
Like you see that Donatello, again, if I guess your personality is your job, is like the IT guy in this more than the 1990 movie. And then Michelangelo's always just the fun guy, and Leonardo, like you can see like this is so much more of him, like that he went away and he's like, I'm not fit to be a leader, I'm gonna figure this out and I will like learn. So it does feel like they're giving him more in terms of like an arc, because in the other movie it's kind of like, I think he does say in the 1990 movie, like I never said I was the leader or whatever, but like in this it's like I should be the leader and now I need to like work on that so that I can be the leader my family deserves or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's what I liked about this film, is that it's loosely connected to it. Like, to me, it does connect to all the Shredder stuff and all that. But then when the time travel stuff, it's arguable whether or not, like in the third, it's arguable whether or not it continues from that.
It does, because they have the time travel machine at the end of the movie.
Right.
That lantern.
Right.
It's connected. I feel like it shouldn't be, but it is. I just feel like I don't see, again, we're just talking about the Judith Hoag April. I mean, it gets even worse if you're talking about the April that replaced her. I don't see that April turning into the Sarah Michelle Gellar April.
Right.
Like that doesn't make any, and I'm saying even at the best she was, I don't see her turning into this adventurer that like going out and like basically being like an artifact stealer. I'm like, that seems weird to me.
Yes.
I feel like, and I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I'm saying that decision makes sense if you're saying these are just, this is just a new world.
Right.
This isn't following on. But then they're like, no, it is. It's following on from those other movies. I'm like, all right.
That's
cool.
I will agree with you there. The April here, I like the spirit of April, but it's not a continuation of that same April because it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. I mean, like Casey Jones being a
numbskull. It's whatever. Like, yeah, I get it. He'll just do whatever she says. Yeah,
great. But like her building a successful company with him, shipping to the degree where he's so bad at his job he will knock over something. Like it's just like, I don't believe that. Just make it a new one. You know, just make it new. Reboot the whole thing. I you know, it would be fun like that. I think it suffers because it's just like when you really have that CGI department. And I get why they were like, okay, well, it doesn't make sense to do fully animatronic. Like it's going to look even worse now with better cameras, and it's going to because each film that they made, they spent more and more money on that, and they had less and less profit. So it was like
I don't know if it would look worse because like a lot of Jurassic Park is animatronics. I don't think people think that looks bad.
Right. What I'm saying, well, whether or not they had the potential of making the same thing, because okay, the reason why I bring this up is because Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace, where when the original CGI Yoda, I mean, not the original puppet Yoda, was horrible, like the worst thing ever. And they're just like, maybe we not make that mistake here, and we do this. So when was the original Phantom Menace?
Was that 99?
Phantom
97.
99.
Okay, 99.
Yeah. So I don't know if that factored into it. It's like maybe let's not do that here. But that
I don't know. I feel like that comes down to like where was George Lucas like putting his focus, and I feel like it was more the CGI than the puppetry.
Yeah. True.
I genuinely feel that he was like, he was like, okay, whatever, we'll do the puppet, and then I'm pretty sure aren't in like the new releases he's just fully CGI again.
Yeah, they made him CGI. Which
I feel like that's where,
one of the changes of the new releases that I do appreciate.
I feel like that's just where Lucas's head was at. Like, how can I do the CGI stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, like getting back to this one, the full move to CGI, it wasn't done successfully because it was just like, I think I like where they wrote the turtles. I love where they wrote that, but I don't like where they wrote April and just April, because it's like that doesn't make
Casey Jones is main. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and also I actually do see him just being like that from the first 3 movies.
Correct.
Like, yeah, he's an idiot. So like
Yeah.
I could see him just being an idiot again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that is something that I can easily just not think about while watching it. But it is something they want you to know that it is a continuation.
Yes.
And there's only like I feel like a couple of lines of dialogue, and then at the end of the movie when they're like, "Hey, like in case you weren't clear, look at all this stuff from the first 3 movies. This is part of the same world."
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's just like, hey, this is why you didn't see Shredder. Remember, this happened.
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, it was a decision they went with. It was one that didn't work well for us, but independent of that, one of the biggest things of this movie is as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, this like as a like just a film alone, this does succeed for me. If it was a reboot and that was it, like cool.
Yeah.
It was just an independent Ninja Turtles like story and film. Like looking at that, it succeeds. It works for me.
Yeah, I think it's a fun movie. Like you get to have the turtles do their thing, and like you get the idea of like, and that's kind of the thing. It does feel like kind of a soft reboot because it is them coming together for the first time in a long time. So you do still get the idea of like, oh, this is how they learn to work together again. And it feels natural if you've already seen the other movies because like, well, yeah, they were split up. But if you are for the first time as a kid watching this, you could be like, okay, yeah, like you still get that progression of the characters. So I do think it's successful that way. I mean, for me, I'm just like, I don't like the look of them. And in general, I don't like the animation, but I do like specifically, I think the emotion and just obviously you can tell they were like, and we're going to have a fight scene between Leonardo and Raphael. And they put a lot of effort into that.
Yeah, that fight scene is fantastic. I do love that scene.
Which is good. I mean, it serves a purpose in the movie. It isn't just like, hey, like who would win in a fight? It is like, no, like these 2 people are at odds and like there's a lot of resentment there. There's a lot of like anger. It's got to come out some way. And then it leads to stuff later.
Yeah.
So I think it's well done, which is to say it wasn't well done in Batman vs Superman. But like I think this moved the story along well.
Yes.
And I feel like there's not really much to this. And we did say like this, the person who did Splinter in this, I don't know what the split is because he did die before he finished his stuff for Splinter. I think he probably did like 80% of it. And I remember the director being like, I don't want to get a sound alike. Like, let's just recast him. Luckily, they didn't because I like the tone he has here. And like, apparently he did a lot of ad-libbing. Like there's that scene where they're having breakfast and he's like humming. And like, that was like a nursery rhyme from his childhood that he put in. And I'm like, yeah, like it's good that you got to keep his performance because then you would lose moments like that where there's no subtitles. It's not like a thing. And it's just like, it just feels nice to like have that bit of Japanese coming from a Japanese actor. Like just that like, no, I'm just doing this. Like it's morning time and I'm going to hum my nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And yeah, Lawrence Fishburne does the voice. That guy loves comic books, I got to imagine.
Yeah, he's got a great voice.
Because what's that? He's in Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles. Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman.
The comic book world loves him.
He's in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Hmm.
Yeah, he gets around. Good for him.
Yep.
Who else is in this? Patrick Stewart is the bad guy turned good guy.
Yep.
There's a bunch of like people who we know, like just their voices, like John DiMaggio, who's Bender. He's one of the like not monsters, but he's one of the generals that worked with Patrick Stewart. Chris Evans.
Karai. That's cool.
Right, from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I wish I knew more. Like the things she's in that I remember from. I'm like, I wonder if she like is like, I've done a lot of stuff. Like I know she's in
Yeah.
Rush Hour 2. So
Yeah, she
that's
did
good.
not do very many things, and she was very, very typecast. So it
Well,
was
she
like,
didn't do many things like for Western audiences. I get the sense she
yeah,
did a bunch of stuff.
yeah, she did stuff again for like Chinese audiences.
But I know that she was primarily a model. She wasn't
Yeah,
like
she
an
was a
out and
dancer.
out actor.
She
Yeah.
was. I believe she was like a dancer or something like
Right.
that, and then turned into a model. But yeah,
Well, yeah, she likes to perform.
yes,
Yeah, it's an interesting cast.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're missing people. Kevin Smith, he's in it.
yeah.
If you read it on IMDb, they're like it's because he's an avid New Jersey Devil fan, and I'm like, is it? I can't imagine that's why. Because he's in a scene with the New Jersey Devil, but it's never named as such, and also they're in New York, so it really doesn't matter.
Unnamed cook at a diner where Night Watcher fights the New Jersey
I
Devil.
just feel like he wanted to be in a Ninja Turtle movie.
Yeah, I feel like he's like, hey, can I do something like that? It's just like how Simon Pegg was like, hey, can I be that Ungar guy that like
and
like trades
in
for
Force Awakens?
Yeah. So and then like Daniel Craig being like, hey, can I be a stormtrooper? Like I would love to be like that. To be like, hey, can I do like a cameo role like that? Like that must be so much fun.
Yeah.
In Hollywood for them. They're like, yeah, and they're gonna get paid for it too, so that's fun. But yeah, it's an unnamed cook at a diner where Night Watcher fights the Jersey Devil, which I will 100% say, Night Watcher is such a cool name too.
Yes.
Like as a like side.
It's a cool look. I do like when Casey Jones is like, you still look like a turtle in like a helmet.
Metal turtle. Like
Yeah.
it's really funny. I do like this version of Casey Jones much better because he's not problematic in it. He's just like a dummy.
No, they just kept the dumb stuff. They didn't keep the
okay, we're not
toxic stuff.
Yes. We're gonna let that be. So I like this version of Casey, which which tracks well for me is if we're led to believe that this is a continuation of the 90s stories, then it stands to reason to me that April would educate him over time to not be misogynistic too. So I do like the fact that he's like this now.
Yeah.
Grew. So yay for his character and how they wrote him, but he's still dumb, so that's fun.
Yeah, he's gotta be dumb and fun, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. For sure.
But yeah, to circle back, these movies I feel like are successful at like setting a tone.
Yeah.
As I said,
never
like,
question what they're going for. That's the good thing. It's never questioned. It's like never in question. It's like, oh, this is a movie like this, or like, were they going for this? It was like, no, it's a very straightforward movie. It's easy to digest, and you're gonna like it. You're gonna have a good time.
Whereas, like, I feel like again the later movies didn't really work for me because the first one I was like, oh, it's an April O'Neil story.
Yeah.
Which is what it's called Ninja Turtles though, and it's like all about April O'Neil and like she's the one that did everything for them, and I'm like, oh, and this is just what do you call it? Anecdotal evidence, but like after that movie, like how like in movie theaters you can get like cups with like the turtles like bandanas or whatever. Like the kid had an orange cup, like the Michelangelo one, and that movie is so like weird about the turtles that he came out thinking he had a Leonardo cup, and I'm like, yeah, like I can't imagine a world where I don't know which turtle is which, but like I've heard other people on podcasts who are like, I don't really like know the turtles. That wasn't my thing. And like they say they like that first 2014 one, and they also don't know which turtle is which, and they're adults. And I'm like, yeah, I just feel like there is something to it that like you couldn't walk away from that movie and know which turtle is which.
It's funny because that movie is so you project their identities based on the visuals because the visuals are really, really good for it. It's like, okay, that looks cool. That's like distinct enough and all that kind of stuff. You project like, okay, that makes, and that's the one issue Well, that's one thing that I liked about that. They paid attention. It was like, oh, okay, Donatello's supposed to be nerdy, so this is what he's going to look like. Raphael's going to look like a warrior, and then Michelangelo's going to look like this, and Leo's going to look like this, based on their characters, right? But then they fail to bring that into the personality department because they just completely forget about the turtles in that one. It's all the Megan Fox, April O'Neil show, and that's the problem with it. But visually, I like the movie. That's what I like about it. It's just like visually, it worked well.
Don't like the way the turtles look. It really bothers me.
Yeah.
I think, and something else someone said in a different I don't know why I've been hearing so many Ninja Turtle podcasts. It's probably what reminded me that we forgot to do it in order. Is that like it's weird to have them be these tanks like they are in that 2014 movie, when the comic it's like they're obviously not the size of turtles, but like they're smaller, and the idea is that it's not like easy for them to do what they're doing, like when they have to fight the foot. And then that makes it so that when Shredder shows up, you're like, holy shit, like this is going to be a big deal. But like if they are these tanks like they are in the 2014 one, and like they're 9-foot monsters, you're kind of like, okay, I guess we're just going to keep watching people kick and punch each other. And you kind of lose, well, one, you lose the element of the teenage part of it. And I do feel like, it depends. Like if you are going for kids, you also lose that element of them because they're so big and they're monster like. Where's the connection for a kid watching? Like they aren't at that level of like feeling like they tower over the world. That's,
you know what, those are points I never really considered. I just like one of those things where like, hey, they look cool, I like that, and like the visuals, I'm like, the visuals worked for me, and now it doesn't make sense.
I get what they were going for. Like none of the movies we've talked about really lean into the teenage part, but at least with the Ninja Turtles, they are small. Like if for that 90s one, they're still maybe they're 5'10", but they're not like towering over anyone. And you do get to feel like, I feel like, as silly as it sounds, it does feel like you can connect with them more.
That is true.
These like things that are like just monsters. And up until like, I feel like visually in cinema, like you're already creating a distance between the turtles and the audience. Like they aren't like you.
Yeah. So what I will say is, like, I'm looking at the picture now of the turtles next to Megan Fox, and like Mikey looks to be the same height as Megan Fox, which Megan Fox height, we can get like in term 1.6 meters in feet. So let's say she is 5'4". So we have Mikey that's like, let's say 5'5", Leo that's like 6 foot, and then Raph that's like 6'3". These guys are huge, giant, bulky guys, and they're like jacked up too. It's a good point. Like, because the turtles that we were watching in the original one, how much taller were they compared to?
They weren't. I feel like they were shorter. Like the people who were doing the actual like fighting were shorter.
Right.
Like, so they probably were like maxing out at like 5'5", 5'3".
Okay. So that's a good point. I never considered the size. I'm just like, you're right. These guys are absolute units. They look like absolute units. And like for me, I was just like, I suspended belief of everything. I was just like, oh, cool. Looks cool. I like it.
Yeah, I still don't like the look of it, but I understand what works about that look, especially if you're comparing it to the TMNT look.
Yeah, where the TMNT look I like better. With the scale aspect of it.
But I wish that, and I know that Seth Rogen is doing his Ninja Turtles thing. I don't remember if it's a movie or a show, but he's like going to lean into the teenage part of it. I don't know how well that worked, but like, again, listening to a lot of stuff about Ninja Turtles, someone pitched it like more of like an Amblin type thing, like a Stranger Things type thing. I'm like, I guess that could be cool too. I feel like that is usually what works when you're rebooting, is like creating that sense of wonder and like being able to explore a world. And the best way to do that is with kids. Like to have them like explore something.
Mm-hmm.
It feels less like you're being talked down to when that happens.
True.
But yeah, who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen with that? I have never really been like, oh, I need them to actually be teenagers. It's just that movie is so far removed from it. And to be fair, I think at one point the movie was only going to be called Ninja Turtles. It really wasn't concerned, and they were going to be aliens. It just wasn't concerned with the teenage or mutant part of it. And then they got pushed back. A lot of that movie got pushed back because, like,
right.
I think at one point it was like William Fichtner was supposed to be Shredder, and then everyone was like, no. And so then the movie awkwardly has to like create these scenes where someone in the shadows is Shredder, and you're like, oh. Okay. Or like the fact that it wasn't supposed to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they're like, well, just put the Teenage Mutant part at the beginning. Like, who cares?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what Seth Rogen does with it, because I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, you're watching The Boys. I feel like he's good at doing comic book adaptations.
Oh yeah,
I wasn't like, I kind of fell off of Preacher after the first season, but I feel like people liked it.
Right.
It just became clear it wasn't necessarily for me.
Right.
But The Boys is for me.
Hey.
All right. I guess I don't feel like we really rated at this point. It was just like, yeah, both of them hold up in ways that work, and I think the same stuff I didn't like back then. Other than, I would say, yeah, the only thing that is like made clear to me during this rewatch is for the 90s one, they do a worse job of actually having 4 distinct turtles. I feel like TMNT does a better job of it. And yes, some of it is just being like, they're different. Look at where they are in life. But at least it is like, well, if you start with them separated, you get to see like their individual personalities and then see how that melts together.
Right.
Whereas the 90s one, it's like, I'm happy they're together, but it's also like, there's no difference between Donatello and Michelangelo.
Correct. Yeah. I do like what TMNT does accomplish. I just don't like that they're trying so hard to connect it to continuing. It
would be nice if it was like a line of dialogue that you could just forget about, but like I feel like they like to end it the way they do. It's like, I guess I could just turn it off before that scene, I guess.
Because if they just went like that time we were in Japan, like as a joke nod, I'm like, that's cool. I would have liked that, but like they really, I guess, pushed into that.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're gonna do something like that, that's such a departure. I guess you have to, because otherwise you'd be like, we would also complain. It's like, well, why isn't the villain Shredder? You know what I mean?
I think you're right. I think that like, unfortunately, that's the way things work for people is like, that's why there's always a rush to be like, all right, well, when's Batman gonna meet Joker, or when is Superman gonna meet Lex Luthor? It's kind of like, yeah, let's get to the hits. Like, get the stuff I know. And so, yeah, you're right. If they are saying this is the 4th movie, then people are like, well, I guess I already saw Shredder 2 times already.
Yeah. It's true. Like, it's the issue. It's like, oh, so we're doing Shredder, and this time not even differently. Or like, it would be a problem in its own right. But so I do appreciate what the TMNT does accomplish. And I do like the visuals of it. Just except for the human aspect of it. I like the way the turtles look. I actually do.
I mean, I would never say anyone's wrong for that. I just only really like that first set of turtles from the 90s. Sure. I don't even like the Secret of the Ooze turtles I certainly do not like I don't even know what it's called, but the third time travel one, I really don't like them in that. I don't like the look of the turtles in the 2014 and beyond movies.
Yeah, the first one does the best aesthetic from the live action for sure. 2 and 3 just looks really creepy. Like the amount of like what they do,
got like the freckles or something, or the speckles. Yeah,
I
don't get it.
Freckles on Raphael, like it really put a lot of it into it. I'm like, whoa, this is. And then in the contrast of like not only that, but they're in Japan, but a lot of the scenes are done in the light. So it's like really, like you really see all of it, and you're like, oh man, this is really hard to watch. But also the issue with it is just like from a storyboard perspective, I'm like, you're just asking us to believe that if they time travel back to Japan, that they've all like this is a population of people that are going to be very okay with this and react the way that they do. But it's just
there is time spent on are they demons or not, and they use that to their advantage when they go to other villages. That
right.
Oh, like we're like, oh shit, they're real demons. So there is that. I just don't like it. I just don't care. And I take it back. Secret of the Ooze and Turtles are fine. They're not the same, but they're fine. They're not horrible.
Question: the Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Never watched it.
I haven't watched it either. But have you seen an image of it?
I don't like the look of it. If I'm being honest,
That's what I'm asking.
I feel like it's something I should watch since I really like Ninja Turtles and I really like Batman. But like, I'm also like, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. Like, is this really going to work out for me?
Yeah.
Am I going to enjoy this? They're not. It doesn't. I get it. They're all ninjas, but it doesn't seem like a mix I would ever want. Like
it's not like when you get Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles together.
Yeah, that's two teams, and you can kind of
crossover. I love that episode so much. It was awesome. It was so cool. But like Batman, like it just doesn't really work because you're also having us believe at this point where Batman, we're now believing as like, no, he's a solo guy, or he only built his own team and all that kind of stuff, Justice League or whatever, but he didn't build the Ninja Turtles. Like as a team up, it doesn't really work because ultimately it has to get to there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, it's a very, you're right. I haven't watched it, but I'm curious about the aesthetic because I'm looking at a picture of it now. I'm like, oh man, you can't like this aesthetic either.
No, I don't.
Yep.
You know me well. Yep. I don't know what to say. Like, it's just not for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I do like the aesthetic of the TMNT. It works for me. It does. But yeah, good times.
All right. Well, this is the part of the show where I get to say that if you enjoyed this, you're really going to enjoy the fact that we are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network. There's other great podcasts such as Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, No Budget Nightmares with a great theme song, and more. So please head on over to thatshelf.com, hit up the podcast section, and start browsing. If you'd like to hear older episodes of Spoiled Rotten, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Amazon Music, and more. So there's many different ways for you to listen to us if you don't want to go to those sites. And you can rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you very much. And what about you, Ben?
That's about it.
Excellent.
Stay safe. Have a good time, everyone. And yeah.
I think next week is Iron Man. I don't know why I said that on the recording. Whatever happens. But but I'm pretty sure next week is Iron Man.
Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.